Asking questions serves a variety of purposes, but in teaching, asking questions, especially the right question at the right time, can aid in the learning process. There are many different types of questions: research, casual, recall, rhetorical, closed and open questions. The categories of questions vary according to the needs of the questions and as well as the researcher who puts them together. But in teaching and learning, questions serve a purpose to analyze how students think and also how new knowledge has been received. In looking at the questions, ponder the purpose of the question and the best questioning strategy. This will help you to decide which question to use. The following list of questions will aid in determining the best practice to get the best results. Using the best question for the situation will determine the best response to learn what you need to know. Probing questions will help to get an insight into what someone has just said. This type of question will lead to uncovering greater understanding and any hidden reasons or emotions behind what an individual has said. This will require that the responder dig deeper than the first quick answer, as the questioner can ask subsequent questions to dig deeper. Some probing questions can be used to clarify, increase critical awareness, refocus, prompt, and redirect. We're going to look at each of these. Clarifying questions are simply questions that ask for facts. They will add clarification or insights. They are used to provide more feedback and provide more information. Some examples are, what exactly do you mean? Can you rephrase your statement? Could you elaborate on that point? What did you mean by? Critical awareness is to uncover a belief, a value, a piece of knowledge, a practice that may be at the forefront of the individual. It will reveal deep-rooted beliefs and knowledge when used effectively. Some examples are, what did you assume? What are your reasons for thinking so? Is that all there is to it? How many questions are we trying to answer here? Refocus. To refocus is simply to bring one's attention back. Using this type of question will aid in pulling a student's attention back to what is important. It can be particularly helpful when someone's attention is pulled away, or maybe they're just daydreaming. It also aids when a student gets distracted by another point and forgets the main point or the main reason of what they're looking for. Some examples can be, can you relate this to? Let's analyze that answer. How does your answer relate to fill in the blank? Prompting questions are going to provide direction to an answer. This is really helpful to get to the right answer, especially when you know that there is only one correct answer. But it also empowers students to find ways to solve problems for themselves. For example, the teacher might say, John, what is the square root of 94? John would reply, I don't know. The teacher then says, well, what is the square root of 100? John would say 10. What is the square root of 81? John would then reply 9. The teacher then would say, what do we know about the square root of 94 then? John could then deduct that it's between 9 and 10. Questions can easily be redirected to another individual by adding a name or simply adapting the question a little bit. For example, what is the theme of Hemingway's Old Man and the Sea? Would you agree with that, John? Do you think it's that simple, Mary? Factual questions are those that recall knowledge. They are exactly what the name says. They are a question that will require a fact-based answer. When asking this type of question, be aware that there will be only one right answer. This question will provide an answer that can be verified. For instance, what is the square root of 100? We know that it is 10. Factual questions are often going to start with the words who, what, when, or where. Do not involve feelings or opinions. They provide insights into how much a learner knows, and they allow the educator to determine what needs to be learned. There are actually two different types of factual questions. The first one is the simple question. These will get a simple answer. It is best determined to know exactly what a learner knows in an exact manner. For instance, you could ask, what is the square root of 100? And you know it's going to be 10. This would be a sample of a simple factual question. A complex question. The complex question is organized to help put together an order or a sequence. It is still based on fact, but it requires a deeper concentration. So for instance, it might ask you to look into the steps that a bill gets before it becomes law. Or how do you produce a certain kind of chemical? Divergent questions are questions that have a variety of answers. There is no right and no wrong response. It's an opportunity for students to really think about things, to dig deeper. They will think of it as a question that's going to start brainstorming, and it's going to use to direct a student to arrive at a response. So divergent questions are valuable because they help students to develop higher critical thinking skills. They are used to analyze and evaluate, and from that point, the student can then derive an outcome or come up with a new idea or a myriad of other responses. Educators can use divergent questions to guide students in recognizing varying results. For example, what would happen if Congress were to prevent a law that would really allow people to buy marijuana? The student then can look at all the different varying options. What happens if marijuana were legalized on a federal level? This is going to lead the student or the individual into brainstorming and coming up with a variety of answers and looking at a variety of ideas. Think of higher order questions as a way to help students to solve problems. They are, in essence, a problem solving, a logic or judgment question. This type of question is going to require that an individual recognizes patterns and creates a schema related to what they've already known. There are several different kinds of higher order questions: evaluation, inference, comparison, application, and problem solving. Evaluation questions will require that the student makes a judgment, a value call, or a choice to compare to other things. And the end result is going to be to establish some kind of judgment or a standard. For example, you might ask questions: which of these two books do you think has contributed most to your life? You could also ask, which do you think is the most valuable military leader? Inference questions will always require either inductive or deductive reasoning. Inductive reasoning is a logical reasoning methodology that promotes an individual to come to a general conclusion based on experiences, observations, and/or facts. Deductive reasoning, also called deductive logic, will use one or more statements to reach a logical conclusion. An example of deductive reasoning is like the logic puzzles, comparing several statements to determine the facts. Another example of deductive reasoning is that a tree is green. The grass is the same color as the tree, therefore the grass is green. Some examples are: we have examined the qualities of these leaders and what they have in common. What might we conclude? In general, what qualities are necessary for leadership? Comparison. It's nearly as it seems. It's merely a determination if objects are similar or different, or maybe they're just related. This type of a question is very useful in building a schema of facts and thinking. It creates connections between information. For instance, is the mussel the same thing as a clam? Application questions prompt an individual to use information or facts. They can also be used to aid a student in applying information in a different format than originally learned. This type of question can be used in classifying objects and events with common characteristics, and also to develop relationships between two or more ideas. For instance, you might want to say, can you think of an example to fit this definition? Within this particular question, the student will be required to find an application or something in real-life experiential learning that will fit the definition, which is more theoretical. Problem solving. This type of question can be most valuable to an instructor as it permits the teacher to see some unexpected answers and connections. When using problem-solving questions, the student will apply knowledge to solve a problem. It's just that simple, but it is absolutely more complex in the thinking process. It will require that the student sees relationships between facts and knowledge to the problem. The individual will need to recognize the problem and then apply the solution by using materials, knowledge, facts, and even situations to solve the issue. The student will learn to break down the problem into component parts and then relate them again to the whole and develop a solution as needed. Sadly, this type of question has had a bad reputation and it even causes a lot of trepidation for individuals. Remember the problem-solving questions you had in math when you were growing up? That's why. But don't let this taint your thoughts on using problem solving. It develops higher order thinking skills that are essential throughout a lifetime. You may want to use some questions like these. Suppose you grow up with the idea that dogs are bad. Out of how many dogs that you came in contact with, none of them have bit you were you young, how would you react towards dogs now? You might then look and say, what is the size and type of dogs, and how would you really see why you have a prejudice toward a dog? Affective questions. These ones are used to determine feelings, values, and attitudes of someone else. They're really useful in helping individuals to gain an understanding of themselves and others. For instance, how are you today? How do you feel? Structuring. Structuring questions are related to the learning environment. It's that simple. They could be rhetorical or desiring an actual response. They can even be used to pull the attention of the learners back to the present. For instance, are there any questions? Do you have any further comments? Does everybody know what the assignment is? Questions are often used with little thought, but with deliberate intention, questions can be used more effectively to elicit the desired response and prompt the student to higher thinking skills. Individuals can be taught more excellently through effective questioning skills. The right questions will lead to the right answers.